The receipt peeled from the back of the card machine, still warm when the cashier handed it to me. But the ink wasn't what made my stomach drop. It was her face. That polite tilt of the head. The practiced pause. Then she repeated it, like maybe I hadn't heard her the first time. "I'm sorry, sir. Your card was declined." Not expired. Not unreadable. Declined. Like a verdict. Behind me, someone coughed. The scent of lemon floor cleaner hung in the air, thick and sour under the checkout lane's harsh lights. I could hear the faint whir of the overhead fan fighting October's creeping cold, and in that second, everything around me seemed to freeze, except the blood draining from my face. I fumbled for another card. Didn't say anything. Just nodded, fake casual, like this wasn't the first time my wallet had betrayed me. But it was, and I had no idea why. It wasn't a major purchase, just a few things from Target. Detergent, some new socks, a couple of packs of Halloween candy on sale. The total came out to $42. I'd used that same card to get gas the day before. Same limit, same bank. No warning. By the time I got to the parking lot, I wasn't thinking about candy anymore. I pulled out my phone and opened the app. My bank's logo spun for a second too long before loading the dashboard. Balance, $8.74, available credit, $0 current. Balance, $6,492. Jam. D-Muvin. That number hit like a slap. $6,000? I stared at it for a second, thinking maybe it was a mistake. Maybe I was in the wrong account. But no, my name was right there. Daniel K. Becker. My profile picture, my card, and that balance made no sense. The last time I'd checked, maybe 2 weeks ago, I'd had under $1,000 in charges. Paid it off monthly, always had. I was the guy who used credit for points, not debt. No splurging, no travel luxuries, no gambling sites, no big purchases. So where the hell did $5,000 come from? I drove home with the radio off. The highway lights blinked past like a metronome, but my thoughts ran in ugly, uneven patterns. I kept thinking maybe it was fraud. Some skimmer at the gas station. Maybe someone cloned my card and went on a spree. But something wasn't adding up. I hadn't received a single alert. My card was in my wallet. No weird emails. No warning from the bank. Not even a suspicious activity freeze. If this had been an external hack, wouldn't they have caught it? I pulled into the driveway just before 9. Our house sat in a quiet cul-de-sac outside Naperville, Illinois. 2 stories, gray siding, porch swing that hadn't moved since July. The pumpkins we'd carved last week were already caving in at the sides. Porch lights still flickering, even though I'd promised I'd replace the bulb. The place looked normal, familiar. I didn't realize, as I stepped inside, that this would be the last time I'd feel that way for a long time. "Hey," Julie called from the kitchen. "Did you get the detergent?" "Yeah." I held up the bag, then hesitated. "We need to talk." She turned, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Her dark hair was pulled into a loose bun, and there was a faint tomato stain on her sweatshirt. She looked tired, but calm. Like any other Thursday. I set the bag down and pulled out my phone. "My card got declined. I checked the account. There's over $6,000 on it. Did you use it?" Her face didn't twitch. For half a second, she looked me in the eye, then blinked, turned back to the sink. I knew that blink. I'd seen it during arguments when she didn't want to lie, but didn't want to confess either. "Julie," she sighed, soft and almost inaudible. Then, "I meant to tell you." That sentence, that phrase, it sliced straight through the air like ice water. 10 minutes later, we were sitting on opposite ends of the couch. The TV was off. The detergent bag still sat on the kitchen counter, forgotten. "I took out a personal loan in your name,"
she said quietly. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. The words didn't land. They detonated. I needed help catching up on some things, just short term. I thought I could pay it off before. In my name, I said finally. Yes, I used your info. I had access. I thought, Julie, that's identity fraud. Her head dropped. It's our life, Daniel. Our debt. I didn't think you'd freak out like this. Let me pause here and say something I didn't say out loud that night. I wasn't raised in a family that talked openly about money. My dad worked factory shifts in Aurora. My mom cleaned houses on weekends. We didn't do budgets. We did panic. I'd worked my whole damn life to be the guy who knew where his money was going. The guy who tracked receipts, who set reminders for autopay, who chose 2% cash back over airline miles because it was just smarter. And now my own wife had gone behind my back, used my legal name, my social security number, and loaded a debt I never agreed to. That wasn't a misunderstanding. That was betrayal. She told me it started small, a late credit card payment on her own account, then two. Then she maxed one out and didn't want to tell me. So she opened another, and another. It snowballed until she owed over $9,000 across 4 cards. I just needed to shift it around, she said. The personal loan offered lower interest. I thought I could use your info just for that, transfer my debt, pay less each month, then get back on track. I'd pay it down, quietly. You'd never have known. I laughed. It wasn't a kind laugh. You really thought that, huh? That I'd never know? She didn't answer. I spent that night in the guest room. Didn't sleep much. Just laid there staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything I didn't know, or didn't want to know, about my own wife. We'd been married 5 years. No kids yet. We'd talked about trying next spring, but now I couldn't even look at her. I kept playing back our past months like surveillance footage. The week she said her check got delayed. The time she insisted on using her own card at the grocery store. That weird package I never saw her open. The excuse about paying her friend back. There were signs, but I missed them or ignored them. Next morning I called the bank. Told them I suspected a fraudulent loan was taken out in my name. They asked for details. I gave them what I had. They started a fraud investigation. Said I'd need to file a police report if it turned out to be identity theft. But here's the catch, and the moment everything got even messier. They told me the loan wasn't issued by them. It was through a third-party lender, one I'd never heard of, which meant Julie hadn't just used my card. She'd applied for a new line of credit under my name, new account, new balance, new monthly payment, and she forged my e-signature to do it. The fallout wasn't immediate, but it started ticking the moment I walked back into the kitchen that day, and she asked me, half hopeful, half terrified, "Did you call the bank?" I nodded. She swallowed, and I said the first true thing I'd said since this whole thing started. We're going to need to talk to a lawyer. The thing about betrayal, real betrayal, is that it doesn't hit you all at once. It seeps. The day after I called the bank, I sat at my desk staring at a scanned copy of the loan application. There it was, my full name, address, income bracket, social security number, all accurate, all clean. And then there was the signature, my name, in a slightly slanted script. Not my usual blocky, upward-tilted scrawl, but close. Close enough that someone on the outside wouldn't question it. That almost made it worse. Julie hadn't just guessed. She'd practiced. The lender was something called Arrow Blue Financial. Not a big bank. An online loan servicing company with a slick mobile interface and low APR promos for consolidation seekers. Their logo looked like it belonged on a prescription bottle. They sent me a full packet. Email confirmation logs, IP address metadata, even browser type. You want to know the worst part? The application came from our home Wi-Fi.
Same timestamp as a Saturday I remembered clearly, because it was the day I was cleaning the garage while Julie said she was doing laundry and catching up on bills. I'd been 15 feet away, while she borrowed 6 grand in my name. I didn't tell her right away that I had the paperwork. I wanted to see if she'd admit it. We'd barely spoken since the "I meant to tell you" conversation. She stayed mostly upstairs, said she was giving me space. I started sleeping in the guest room like it was a hotel suite. Toothbrush in a cup, spare, charger by the outlet, closet with only 3 shirts hanging. I called a lawyer. A guy named Ray Garvin, mid-50s, used to be a prosecutor, now did civil disputes, financial stuff, some family law on the side. Found him through a buddy who'd gotten burned in a messy divorce a year back. Ray didn't sugarcoat it. If you want to press charges, we can. It's fraud, plain and simple, spousal or not. But that road gets ugly fast. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me through the phone. And if I don't want to go nuclear? He paused. Then we start with a paper trail. Credit freeze, dispute letters, maybe a separation agreement if it comes to that. That night, I finally brought out the documents. I laid them on the kitchen table after dinner. She was rinsing her plate. Meatloaf night. I hadn't tasted any of it. Julie turned around slowly. I pointed to the top page. "That's your signature," I said. Her shoulders tightened. I flipped to the browser data. "And that's our IP address." Still no reply. "You didn't just use my card. You opened a new loan account. That's a whole different level." She didn't try to deny it. "I know," she said. "I know. I didn't know how to undo it once it started." I wanted to yell. I wanted to scream. What the hell were you thinking? But the anger had calcified, solid now, cold. So I said nothing, and she filled the silence herself. "I was scared, Dan." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "I've been falling behind for months. My cards, my car payment. I didn't want you to see me as broken. I thought I could fix it myself. That's not fixing, that's hiding." She nodded, lips pressed together. "You always have it together," she said. "You check the receipts, you budget for birthdays, you make extra payments on the mortgage, and I'm over here hiding Amazon boxes and praying my debit card doesn't bounce at the gas pump." It should have made me feel superior. Instead, I just felt tired. I asked her for the full truth. Every account, every balance, every payment she'd missed. It took her 2 hours to gather the papers. There were printouts and login screens and Post-its with passwords she barely remembered. The dining room table looked like we were building a forensic file. The damage? Roughly $17,800 in total debt, not counting mine. 4 credit cards, 1 old store card from college, a deferred student loan, and now the Aero Blue personal loan under my name. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything, but I stood up halfway through and just walked into the garage, sat on the cold concrete floor beside the water heater, and tried not to breathe too loudly. We agreed to separate finances immediately. I froze my credit, changed my online banking passwords, called my HR department, and removed her from my emergency contacts. It felt apocalyptic, like we were mid-divorce even, though no one had filed anything yet. Julie offered to move out. I told her no, not yet. I didn't want to explain things to our neighbors. I didn't want awkward questions. We were just going to try and coexist, quietly, for now. "Sleeping in separate room?" she asked. I nodded. "And are you going to press charges?" "I don't know yet." She didn't argue, didn't plead. That almost hurt more. Work didn't help. I sat through meetings and nodded at budget slides while wondering if the guy across the table had ever gone through something like this. Lunch tasted like paste. Coffee didn't hit the same. I stopped checking Facebook. Every smiling couple photo felt like a personal insult. Every Throwback Thursday from our wedding made my jaw clench. Julie still wore her ring. I noticed it one night while she was microwaving leftovers. I don't know why, but that bothered me more than I expected. She kept wearing it, like it meant the same thing it used to, like everything wasn't already broken. Ray, my lawyer, said the ball was in my court. I could file a report with the local police, get a case number, start the process of disputing the loan officially. But that would mean turning my wife, the person I'd spent half a decade building a life with, into a criminal defendant. It would mean courtrooms, statements, sworn affidavits. It would mean scorched earth. And maybe, deep down, I wasn't ready for that. Not yet. A week later, the first loan payment posted to my account. $280. I stared at it like it was a tumor. Something growing inside my financial record. Something foreign. And that's when I decided, if she wasn't going to make this right on her own, then I'd do it another way. I started setting appointments. One with a forensic accountant to help trace any linked spending patterns. One with a credit repair consultant. One with Ray to talk about next steps. And one I didn't tell anyone about. With a therapist. Because I needed to know if I was crazy for still wanting to love someone who'd used my name like a weapon. There's a strange kind of silence that settles in a house when two people are still technically living together, but the relationship has been quietly amputated. It's not like fighting. It's not yelling, slamming doors, raised voices. It's absence. Julie and I became ghosts in our own home, passing each other in hallways, like strangers in a motel. She'd cook dinner. I'd eat a protein bar at my desk. I'd fold laundry. She'd pretend not to notice I left hers in the basket. Our words were reduced to logistics. Did you get the mail? Garage lights out again. Your mom called. I started using noise-canceling headphones even when I wasn't listening to anything, just to create a buffer between her and my thoughts. The therapist's office was in an old brick building in downtown Naperville. Smelled like tea tree oil and dust. My guy's name was Lewis. Late 40s, clean beard, soft voice, like a high school counselor who didn't want to scare you off. He asked me why I came in. I told him the truth. My wife forged my signature, took out a loan in my name, and I think I might still love her. And I don't know what that says about me. He didn't flinch, just nodded and said, "That's a good place to start." We met weekly. I didn't tell Julie. One night around 10, she knocked on the guest room door. I was lying there half-dressed, scrolling nothing. She peeked in like a tenant requesting a repair. "Hey, can we talk?" I sat up but didn't speak. She walked in slowly and sat on the edge of the bed, not next to me, but on the corner, near the door, like she needed to show she knew she didn't belong. "I called the loan company," she said, "asked if I could transfer the debt back into my name. They said no, not without your consent." I raised an eyebrow. "I'm not asking you to do it," she added quickly. I wanted you to know I tried." Tried, past tense. In the weeks since everything blew open, I'd become something I used to resent. The secret-keeping husband. I had a spreadsheet now, a private one, password locked. Tracked every payment, every late fee, every due date tied to Julie's debt, and whether she paid or not. I didn't say a word to her about it. I just watched. Because trust, once it breaks, doesn't come back with words. It comes back, if ever, through patterns, through consistency, and her patterns weren't good. Late November, I noticed the Arrow Blue loan hadn't been touched. Payment missed. No alert on her phone, no check in the mail, no bank app open on her screen. I waited 2 days, then 3. On the 4th, I printed the overdue notice and left it under her cereal bowl. She said nothing, but the payment was made that night. From my account. That's when I stopped playing nice. I called Ray the next morning and asked him to draw up a financial separation agreement. Not a divorce, Not yet. But a clean document that stated legally she could not open or use any accounts in my name without written consent, and that any new or existing debts were solely hers to manage. He sent it over that afternoon. I slid it across the kitchen table, the way someone might serve a folded flag to a grieving widow. Julie looked at it for a long time, didn't touch it, then finally asked, "Is this really where we are now?" "Yes," I said. "This is exactly where we are." "You want to know the worst part?" She signed it. Didn't fight, didn't argue, just nodded, took the pen, and signed her name like she was clocking out of a job she knew she was going to lose anyway. I stared at that signature, the one she used to fake mine. It looked exactly the same. From that day on, we lived like roommates who owed each other nothing. But money has a way of surfacing, even in silence. Like when her car got towed because she missed a parking ticket hearing, or when I found her on the phone in the laundry room whispering to a collections agent, or when she asked, casually while slicing apples, if I thought she should just file for bankruptcy and start over. I didn't answer, but I made another note in my spreadsheet, because even if she wanted to start over, she was doing it inside my house, under my roof, using heat and light and groceries my paycheck still covered, and that was not starting over. One night, she came home with a bag from Walgreens, set it quietly on the table. Inside, a pregnancy test. I froze. She didn't say a word. Neither did I. And for the first time in weeks, we sat at the table together. Not as a couple, not even as adversaries. Just two people who suddenly realized the cliff they were already standing on might have just gotten taller. The test was negative. She didn't cry. I did, not out loud, just once, in the shower, where the sound could get swallowed. Because I knew then, with absolute clarity, that a baby would have trapped me, would have made me stay, made me pretend, made me compromise with someone who didn't know what the word meant. That single pink line, it was a reprieve. And I hated that I felt relieved. Lewis, my therapist, said something that stuck. You can't save someone who doesn't know they're drowning. I asked him, what if she does know? What if she just doesn't care? He didn't answer that one. Just let the silence stretch. In early December, I found out she'd been using a second Venmo account, one I didn't know about. Small payments, $15 or $40, $60, to someone saved in her history as AL repairs. I thought it was car stuff. It wasn't. It was to her sister Angie, cash to cover her bills. Julie had been sending my money, indirectly, to patch someone else's hole. The loans weren't the end of it. They were the beginning. That night, I printed screenshots. I placed them in an envelope. I left the envelope on her pillow. And I went for a drive. For 2 hours. No destination. Just the sound of tires humming and the hollow churn of my gut. When I got back, she was waiting at the kitchen island. The envelope was open. Her eyes were red. She didn't say sorry, didn't defend herself. She just said, "You're leaving me, aren't you?" I didn't answer. But I did take my wedding ring off, slow, like a man trying to unscrew the past from his own hand. There's a moment when you walk into a lawyer's office to talk divorce that feels almost surgical, not dramatic, not cinematic, clinical. I sat across from Ray again. Same charcoal blazer, same desk cluttered with legal pads and lemon drop wrappers, and I said the thing I'd been chewing on for weeks. I want out. He didn't blink. Contested or uncontested? I didn't know. I still don't. Because when the person who betrayed you is someone you once swore to build a life with, the lines between war and surrender get real blurry. Julie didn't fight me on the separation agreement, didn't argue when I had utilities moved into my name only, didn't complain when I canceled our shared Costco card.
But the moment I used the word divorce, her tone shifted. "You're really doing this?" she asked, voice low. No tears, not yet. "I have to." She shook her head like she was still trying to wake up from a long nap. "So that's it? One mistake and you're done?" "One?" I laughed. "You used my name, my credit, lied to my face, and that's the part you're shrinking down to one mistake?" She flinched. Good. Because if I had to carry the weight of her choices every time I opened my bank app or checked the mail, then she could damn well carry the truth for one conversation. I started sleeping elsewhere. First at my brother's for a few days, then a short-term rental with mismatched towels and loud neighbors and the kind of mattress that makes your back hate you by sunrise. But it was mine, paid in full, no hidden loans, no forged name on the lease, just me. The first night I walked barefoot across the laminate floor, opened a beer, and sat on the edge of the mattress. Quiet. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just sat there, breathing like I'd been underwater for too long. Ray drafted the initial paperwork. I read every word. Julie would keep her car, her student loan debt, and whatever was left of her private checking account. I'd retain the house, at least until I decided whether to sell or refinance. No kids, no alimony, no mutual property beyond the couch, and a second-hand treadmill we both hated. Clean split, or so I thought. Turns out things were messier under the surface. Ray called me a few days later. "There's a complication," he said. "We pulled your credit report again to confirm final numbers. Julie's been applying for credit during the separation period, in your name." I stopped breathing for a second. What? 2 department store cards, a digital buy now, pay later account, all flagged under the same address, all linked to your SSN. It felt like a punch to the chest. Not just because it was fraud, again, but because she'd promised me, in front of a notary, that she wouldn't do this. We had a signed agreement, and she violated it. I drove back to the house that night. Didn't knock. Still had my key. Julie was on the couch watching a reality show. Some dating thing, loud and full of fake drama. I hit pause. She didn't look up. "I know about the new cards." Silence. "I know they're under my name." Still nothing. "I gave you a chance to fix this. You looked me in the eye and said you wouldn't do it again." She finally turned. Eyes glazed, jaw tight. "I needed to cover some stuff. I thought I could handle it before it caught up." "You thought?" I barked. "Julie, I've been catching the fall for you for 6 months. You don't get to say that anymore." "I didn't mean to hurt you." "You didn't mean to get caught." The next morning, I filed a police report. Ray walked me through it. He told me I'd need to submit proof, applications, statements, IP logs, signatures. We had them all, and it felt awful. I don't know how else to say it. Filing paperwork to criminally investigate the person you once bought engagement rings with, it's not satisfying. It's not righteous. It's just sad. But it was necessary. Because my name, my legal name, had become a weapon, and I had to take it back. Julie's response came through her new lawyer, a carefully worded letter requesting mediation. No apology. Just legalese for, "Can we talk before this goes to court?" Ray asked if I wanted to take the meeting. "Only if it's in person," I said. I needed to look her in the eyes one more time. Not for closure, not for peace, but to remind myself that she was real. That this whole nightmare wasn't just some spreadsheet of numbers and forged dates. We met in a strip mall office outside Lyle. Neutral ground, mediation room with plastic chairs and stale coffee. Julie looked thin, tired. Her roots had grown out. I didn't recognize the sweater she wore. Maybe new, maybe borrowed. Her lawyer opened. "We'd like to propose that Mr. Becker drop the criminal complaint in exchange for a signed confession and full assumption of the debts in question." I blinked.
What kind of confession? A notarized affidavit acknowledging her actions. It won't erase your credit damage, but it will help your dispute case. Julie didn't speak. She just nodded. And I realized then, this wasn't a negotiation. It was surrender. I agreed. Not because I trusted her, but because I was done fighting her in the dark. I wanted it documented, on record, that she had lied, taken, and forged. I wanted a paper trail that pointed back to her, not to protect me from her future, but to protect myself from becoming the villain in my own. The affidavit was 3 pages long, detailed each loan, each date, each use of my information without consent. At the bottom, above her signature, there was one sentence that made me exhale in a way I hadn't in months. I, Julie Becker, take full responsibility for the debts I incurred using the identity and credit of Daniel K. Becker without his consent and acknowledge the harm caused as a result. She signed it. Her lawyer witnessed it. And I walked out of that room feeling lighter, not healed, not happy, but no longer afraid of the mail. Julie moved out 2 weeks after the mediation. She left the house the way a tenant moves out of a short-term rental. Clean fridge, no food, drawers open, empty, not a single trace of who she'd once tried to be. No note, no forwarding address, not even a text. Just gone. She left her wedding dress in the upstairs closet. Plastic cover zipped halfway, train curled on itself like a regret. I didn't throw it away. I couldn't. Instead, I boxed it, labeled it Misco Storage, shoved it in the garage behind the fake Christmas tree and a bin of old paint rollers. Maybe someday I'll toss it, but not today. The aftermath wasn't cinematic. There was no big trial, no court date with gavel bangs, no dramatic confession in front of a judge. It was slower than that. The lenders began responding to the affidavit. Some were cooperative, especially Arrow Blue, once they received the notarized confession. Others were stubborn. One even demanded I prove the emotional damage. Ray told me that was standard. You're not their priority, he said. You're just liability control. Still, one by one, the accounts were frozen, transferred, investigated, flagged. Eventually, 3 of them were fully removed from my credit history. The others were pending. The point wasn't perfection. The point was ownership. Her mess was no longer mine to clean up. I kept going to therapy. Lewis and I stopped talking about Julie after the 6th session, started talking about me instead, the kind of man I'd become trying to keep the peace, the little trades I made, my time, my attention, my silence, in exchange for a fantasy version of stability. I told him I wasn't sure if I'd ever trust anyone again. He said, "You don't have to. Just trust yourself more." That landed. It still does. I sold the house 6 months later. Naperville market had cooled a bit, but I made a decent return. Used part of it to pay down the legal fees. Moved into a smaller place. 2 bedrooms, no basement, no ghosts. The guest room is now a small gym. The wedding photo that used to hang in the hallway, I deleted the digital file. Didn't even flinch. Julie never contacted me again. Not when the divorce finalized. Not when the last creditor wrote off her balance. Not even when the joint tax return got flagged for identity mismatch. A problem she caused by filing her taxes using my name for the third-party loan's interest write-off. I fixed that too. No lawyer. Just 3 hours on hold with the IRS and the cold clarity of a man who'd finally learned to read fine print before signing anything. People still ask me sometimes, "Do you think she loved you?" And I don't know how to answer that, because love doesn't prevent betrayal. And betrayal doesn't always mean the love was fake. It just means that somewhere along the way, the person you gave your trust to decided they were more important than us. And then they acted like it. I haven't dated since, not out of bitterness, just time. I'm learning how to be a person again, how to buy groceries without checking 2 accounts, how to fall asleep without wondering who else is using my name, how to open the mailbox without flinching. It's strange. The things you take back after a betrayal. It's not just money or legal ownership. It's the little freedoms, the ability to not worry. I kept one thing, not from Julie, from the mess, a small envelope from Arrow Blue, with the original loan summary, now stamped discharged. I taped it inside the back cover of a blank notebook. On the first page, I wrote one sentence: "My name belongs to me again." If this story moved you, subscribe for more real-life confessions and emotional journeys like this one.